this second episode of Advanced Mixing Techniques with me, Dan. In today's episode, we are going to look at the process known as parallel compression, or as it's originally known, New York style compression. So, New York style compression was invented by sound engineers in, you guessed it, New York. They used it to preserve dynamics of a particular track while adding warmth to it, which is really nice. Okay, it's mostly being used on instruments such as bass guitar, keys, but in today's session we're going to use it on our vocal track. Okay, so maintaining our standard and still using this crazy track, we're going to find some audio from the vocals. Here he is. Here she is, sorry. So here's a original audio track. Let's see what it sounds like. The vocals solo, there they are.
Of your life, but think twice. That's my only advice. Oh yeah. Come on now. Who do you think you are?
There we are. Okay, so that's a bit of a verse. Just going to push that along a bit. There we go. Okay, so the vocal on this track isn't too bad. It's not badly recorded, to be honest. It was recorded with a AKG 414, as you can see there. Okay. So we're going to do a quick little bit of EQ work on it, just to take out that bass sound in the bottom, because we don't really want to hear the bass guitar in this. The process of recording was a live setup with drums added in afterwards. Okay, so we're going to quickly add some EQ onto here using our high pass filter. We're going to set it up around 100 hertz, 120 hertz, quite sharp. Let's push it up to 120. There we are, 120 hertz of high pass filter. So here's what it sounds like. Hopefully we shouldn't hear too much bass.
Of your life, but think twice.
We can hear a little bit in it, but it's not too bad.
That's my only advice.
With EQ, especially with high pass filters, you don't want to push them up too far, as you start to lose the bottom end of the vocal. So 120 tends to work pretty well. Okay, so we've added in our EQ there, which sounds quite nice. If we were to compress this track just by itself, we'd start to lose a lot of dynamics of the vocal, especially with being a female vocal. It's quite a softer voice in some areas. She does give it some welly in the chorus, but we'll look at that in a second. So to set up parallel compression, what we need to do first is make a separate send from this particular track. What you can do is you can copy the track again and compress that, but I tend to choose a send just so it reduces the amount of tracks up here. Okay, so to create a sending logic, all we're going to do is go to our sends on the vocal track, which is here. Going to click on that. We're going to send this on a bus. We're going to use bus number 1 because it's available, so why not? And there it is, it's just popped up as an auxiliary send track. Just for my sanity, I'm going to rename this aux track as vocal comp, as in vocal compression. Okay, I like to do that just so I don't have 10 to 20 auxiliary sends for each track and me going, what's aux 7 for again? Okay, so we've compressed this one. So we've sent this track to our Vox comp. We're now going to add in our compression unit. So we're going to go to our audio effects. We're going to go down to dynamics, as the compression is a dynamic controller. And we're going to add in our compressor. Okay, we're going to pick one from the top, vintage VCA, or we'll try that vintage FET. They're all very similar as compression units, and they all have the same settings. So whichever you pick, it's not going to happen too much. Not going to have too much of an impact. Okay, going to take the auto gain off and the auto release off, just because we're going to play with those settings because we are advanced mixing techniques. So we're going to set up this compression slightly heavier than what we normally would do, and then we can add in this sidechain to add more clarity and dynamic to the track. Okay, so I'm going to solo the send, which is this one. Okay, solo that. So we should now should just hear what's being sent. To hear what's being sent, we do need to increase the send level. Okay, so we're going to increase the send level to 0. There we go, +2 is not too bad, it'll be fine. Okay, so now you should be able to hear audio come through. There we go, that's the soloed tracks then.
But think twice.
So that's without the compression kicking in. So you should be very familiar with compression, but if you're not, there are a few dials to tweak here and there. Similar to gates, we have a threshold. This is when our compressor is going to kick in. When the audio level rises above the threshold level, that's when the compression is going to kick in. Okay. We then have a ratio, which basically says that when the audio goes above the threshold, how much it's going to be reduced by at a ratio between small 1:1 or really pushing 30:1, and then other compression units have up to 100:1, which is just silly in my opinion. Anything above 10:1 is generally going into the realms of limiters, so we're not going to go that far. Okay. We then have a attack setting, which is very similar again to the gate, is how quickly the compression is going to kick in. And then we have release, which is how short or fast this compression unit is going to hold that signal and keep compressing it. Okay, so let's tweak these 5 dials and see what we get. So I'm going to move the threshold first, as you do with any unit, compression or gate. So here we go.
But think twice.
There we go, we can see the dial starting to move.
That's my only advice. Oh yeah. Come on now. Who do you
There we
think
go.
you are?
A little bit overkill there,
Ha, ha, ha.
but that's what I'm meant to be doing because it's a parallel compression. We're not worrying too much about losing dynamic. Okay, we're then going to set our ratio. The normal use of New York style compression is around 3 to 4 to 1. So we're going to set it at about 3.5 to 1. It doesn't matter if you don't have the point, as long as you go between 3 and 4. Generally works quite well. Not going to worry too much about the makeup gain because we can add this back in using the fader later on. Okay. The attack is going to be pretty quick. Let's try 10 milliseconds, and then release is going to be about 120 milliseconds. There we go. Let's see what it sounds like.
Of your life, but think twice. That's my only advice. Oh yeah. Come on now. Who do you?
Okay.
Who do you?
So our compression unit is kicking in quite well there. It's doing what's meant to be doing, parallel compressing the vocal. Okay. We can add another compression unit on the first vocal and then tweak that similarly. But if you're going to tweak the first vocal with the compression, you won't go as hard as we have done with the parallel. Okay. So what we can do is we can bring this compression down, this fader, so we should hear nothing. There we go. We can add in the original vocal, which sounds like this.
Think twice. That's
And then
my
what we can do
only
is add in the compressed parallel. When we do this, you should start to hear that the vocal has a bit more warmth to it and a bit more consistency while still maintaining those dynamics above it. Okay, this allows it to sit nicely above the mix and then still have the dynamics that peak up and down every now and again. Okay, so let's have a listen and see what happens when we add in the vocal comp, the parallel.
Of your life, but think twice. That's my only advice. Oh yeah. Come on now. Who do you think
Okay.
you are?
So that's with it, and this is without
Ha
it.
ha ha. Bless just of your life.
That's without.
But think twice.
And here's with it in.
Of your life, but think twice.
Okay, so here's a combination,
Of your
it
life,
and here's without.
but think twice.
here's with.
That's my only advice.
And here's without.
Oh yeah.
And here's with again.
Come on now. Who do you?
Okay, quite a subtle technique, if I'm honest. It's not a bad technique. It does add quite, as I say, a subtle response to the overall characteristic, but it does help quite a bit. Okay, so if your vocals are a bit dull, a bit boring, maybe not particularly sitting on top of the mix as you'd like them to, or sitting in the mix as you'd like them to, parallel compression is really nice to use. Okay, so to go through that and cap everything off, what we originally did was we took our vocal track, we added a high pass filter to get rid of any unwanted bass sounds. We then set up a bus on bus 1. So we went into bus sends, down to bus, and then bus 1 to our vocal compression. When we got the vocal aux track up, we renamed it for My Sanity to Vox Comp. We then added a compression unit onto this vocal comp. There we go. Tweak the dials, we tweak the threshold so it's quite a low threshold. We then tweak the ratio to between 3 and 4 to 1. We changed the attack, we reduced it down to 10.5 milliseconds, and then increased the release up to 180 milliseconds to give a reasonable compressed sound. Okay, you may need to tweak these and see what it sounds like on your own, but you can do that on your own sessions. Okay, and see what it sounds like. This has just been a very basic thing, and I will retweak these as we go, just make it sound nice. Okay, so here again, here's with
Of your life, but think twice.
and here's without.
Of your life, but think twice.
So there you go, that's parallel compression or New York style compression. Hope that helps you, and I'll see you next week. Thank you very much.